on 7th of February, 2022, the next generation of rockets rolls out to the launch pad. Standing 220 pages in height and weighing some 45,000 words, the rocket is unlike anything ever seen before. But the fruit of all struggle and compromise came with tremendous resistance and skepticism. There was an entire group of skeptics who tirelessly anticipated the project's failure. And their notorious leader, named the head of skeptics, he makes the following announcement by the mid-October of 2019, when the project is well underway, quoting, "Anyone who thinks that the rocket is going to be built, let alone take off in one piece without falling apart, is talking moonshine." And yet, on the 7th of February of 2020, the rocket rolls out from its assembly building, projecting a huge shadow at the group of skeptics and alerting everyone of its existence. Behind the rocket was neither a space agency nor a dedicated group of engineers, but a 14-year-old kid who had a dream of writing 2 books. The rocket is called The Unique, and it's a metaphor for the book that I wrote. Now, if we rewind the clock to the good old summer of 2019, this is where the idea was initially born. So it takes a chaos in your head to give birth to a dancing star. And surely enough, after winning the international writing competition, there was an entire mess of ideas whirling around my head at light speeds. So immensely motivated and armed with the cash prize and a very precious Minecraft account, I decided to write a sci-fi book. So on 28th of August, 2019, I concentrate, I grab my laptop, take a seat, and play Minecraft. And while enjoying the beautiful scenery of Minecraft, I was struck with an idea of combining 2 of my passions, writing books and Minecraft. Writing in Minecraft. The idea was to create a message that would portray the modern problems of the modern society in Minecraft characters that I would be able to share with my peers. And so surely enough, that same evening, I concentrate, I grab my laptop, take a seat, but instead of playing Minecraft this time, I write a grand total of 75 words. Well, the thing is, getting started is really hard. Starting a book was almost like being stranded in the middle of nowhere, having no idea where to go. But once I had those 75 words jotted down, once I had that tiny plate of metal placed down in the assembly building, I knew that there was no turning back. To make things more convenient, I split myself into 3 parts. The first person would be working on the recipe. The second person would gather the ingredients, and the third person would get the oven. And together, these 3 versions of myself would be able to bake any cake they would desire. And so through the 3 versions of myself, I began to interact with the surroundings. I began to absorb every last bit of information that was available to me. I learned from the people, and I started reading more. And through the hard work, we're approaching the mid-November, when the carpet of leaves emerges in the streets and the days are getting shorter and colder. And by then, through my hard work, the main body of the Unique, the rocket, is nearly finished. But remember the head of skeptics? He's there. He's known about the project since day 1. And he's now making all-out efforts to bring the project down. He's chasing me. He's stealing my parts. He's tripping me up. He's hurting my confidence. He does everything to prevent me from succeeding. But I'm not going to let him quench his thirst just yet. I press on through the dark days of November, December, and January, and by the beginning of February, we're at the launch pad. I press the big red launch button, and just like that, I get my first book published on Amazon. But this isn't the end of the story. I have a sequel to write. So after taking a small break, I split myself into 3 parts again and hold a secret celebratory briefing. All right, guess who's talking moonshine now? Congratulations, the 3 of us, we did it. But without wasting any more precious time, we have to create another rocket. And this time, the new rocket, the new sequel, is going to be even more powerful, capable of launching an even stronger message to the audience on the other side of the world. So without any more precious time being wasted, we shall get to the process. Right? Well, turns out the real anarchy is about to strike. So the thing is, with the second book, I now had to verify my abilities of writing. And with the second book, I would be able to find out whether the first book was a stroke of luck or whether I was truly capable of writing. And straight from the beginning, I knew that it was going to be a challenging one. The construction began promptly after, but it wasn't long before I realized that something was going terribly wrong and the project was headed downhill. Because the thing is, the parts on their own, the parts were fine on their own, but it was when I would start to put them together that something would go terribly wrong. The book was turning out to be inconsistent. The storyline was not consistent, and it would not tie in with the ideas developed in the first book. It was a disaster. My three versions of myself were working under time, depleted, lacking in motivation, but at the same time, they're demanding a raise and occasionally going on a strike. How wonderful. And now, as I thought that things couldn't get any worse, I look around the corner and notice the head of skeptics. He's been around the whole time. And so now I know that this isn't going to work. I declared a junkyard behind the assembly building and scrapped the 35,000 words of nearly finished book and started all over again with significantly damaged and depleted self-confidence and the uncertainty for the future. We're approaching the August of 2020, and the book is actually doing worse. The sequel is doing worse. But on the fateful day of 28th of August, exactly a year after the idea was born, a guy named Tyler launches a series of one-star reviews against my books. So it was terrible. It was like the universe started throwing things at me because it didn't like whatever I had sent up there. And the pile of space debris striked the assembly building and leveled it to its foundations. But it doesn't end there. The Tyler-led coalition, consisting of 3 additional members, who we would later identify as internet trolls a year after, did the exact same thing. They launched a series of attacks in the following months. And for me, those reviews were the final nails in the coffin, because it made me realize that I was incapable of producing a good book. So I disconnected from the first book, and I decided not to go back to the second book. The head of skeptics, he finally rejoiced because he was right all the time, all along. But for me, none of that mattered anymore because I had given up. So the months of cosmic silence flashed by in a blink of an eye. And on what appeared to be an unremarkable day of February, I decided to have a look at my book because I couldn't sleep that night and had pretty much nothing else to do. So I ended up going through the whole thing. But what's remarkable is that for the first time, I began to appreciate the passion woven inside the pages. But the story was incomplete without the sequel. Because the 14-year-old Alex, had believed so strongly in his future self that he left those ideas for me to finish. And now, I was ruining his dreams. He believed in me. He believed that I would be fulfilling his dreams. But now I was letting him down, and I couldn't do that. So for me to proceed any further, I needed to face my biggest enemy, the head of skeptics. And that night, I decided to meet him face to face. And with my heart racing like never before, I approached the mirror, and turning on the little orange lamp, I saw my own reflection staring back at me. That's right. The head of skeptics has been my own self the whole time. It has been the voice inside my head that kept stamping onto my brain the idea that I was incapable. It was the fear, anxiety, and self-doubt that made me realize that prevented me from reaching the stars. But now, the passion had been ignited, and it was stronger than ever. It was the same passion that made me defeat the head of skeptics, and I would not hear from that guy in a very, very long time. So the next day, I cleared the debris from the assembly building. I cleared the Tyler's leftover ruins, and I go back to assembling the rocket, and I start all over again for one final time. And for the following 6 months, the 3 versions of myself worked extremely hard and did everything in their power. And by my 16th birthday, the sequel was published. The sequel is called The Anarchy, and it starts with two characters named Parallax and Tyler. They are the villains. Recognize the name Tyler? Exactly. It's a slightly modified version of Tyler, the same guy who nearly brought my project down. And now Tyler is sitting in my book as a very interesting villain, carrying with him a very important message. And if there's one thing that Tyler has taught me, is that whatever life throws at you, whatever difficulty and challenge life throws at you, can be turned into an opportunity. And this is exactly what enables people like us, peers like you, to create something meaningful. It's not the setbacks, but it's the way we use those setbacks and difficulties and challenges to create meaning in the otherwise challenging world. And so the books ended up to be a huge success because I used the opportunity, I used the challenge as an opportunity to restore the things. And sometimes we find beauty in the most unexpected places at the most unforeseen times. And we, the only beholders of such beauty, must cherish this privilege, for it is the universe's greatest gift of all time. Thank you very much.